Two notes to start off. First of all, I'd just like to make clear that I didn't actually look up anything to do with the particle we're going to be discussing until the very preparation of the video that you're watching right now, where I checked it just to make sure I wasn't about to make like 5 minutes of content involving a very embarrassing and easily corrected mistake. The other thing is, I'd just like to say I am not a role model for tones. Please do not imitate me thinking that I'm actually showing you how to do the tones correctly or the pronunciation correctly. I'm still very much working on those things. And if you are looking for somebody to offer you a model for what the tones are supposed to sound like, I would very much suggest you check out Grace Mandarin Chinese's channel. She's got all sorts of great stuff on Chinese phonetics and all sorts of other things that answer questions that learners have. I found her stuff very helpful and I highly recommend it to you. Now, as those of you who follow the channel or the stream, link in description, know, I've been using the Chinese Mandarin edition of John Grisham's The Firm to learn the language for some time now. In this video, I'd like to give you one example of something I've learned from that source of comprehensible input on a subject that likely gives a lot of learners a bit of trouble. I'm talking about Chinese verbs and aspect particles and the way that Chinese expresses relationships between actions and time without actually having a system of tenses. If you know that much, if you know that Chinese doesn't actually do tense as we know it in Indo-European languages, you've probably already learned that Chinese tends to use time expressions, say, 现在,刚刚,昨天,明年, to indicate whether the verb is describing something that's happening right now, something that happened at some time in the past, or something that hasn't happened yet. You've probably also heard that some endings that look and feel a lot like tense markers, such as le or guo, actually aren't tense markers at all, and can be applied to verbs describing past, present, and future actions. Now, one thing that has jumped out at me whilst reading 现进, as the firm is called in Chinese, is that these aspect markers, which indicate, for example, whether an action is a one-off, continuous, repeated, or complete, actually work a bit of overtime. For example, here's a line from the actual book, the line that in fact inspired me to do this video. 把门打开，米奇说着要进了，试一试。 Now, what's going on here exactly? Basically, two things are going on. Mitch, Michi, says something, and Mitch slides into the dressing room. If we look at the original, which I've only just done to write the script for this video, we find, "Unlock the door," Mitch said, as he slid into the dressing room. In other words, we have two simultaneous actions, sliding into the dressing room and saying something. At the same time as he's sliding into the dressing room, in other words, Mitch tells the shop employee to unlock the door. Now, let's turn back to the Chinese. If we leave out unlock the door, which is irrelevant for our present purposes, what we have is 米奇说着要进了试一试. How does the Chinese version express this relationship between the saying of the thing and the sliding into the dressing room exactly? 说着要进了. The two actions are just placed adjacent to one another. Each of them could just as well be a sentence of its own, it's worth noting. You could say, 米奇 说着，米奇要进了试一试。As separate sentences, we have what could be rendered as Mitch was saying, and Mitch slid into the dressing room. The 这 attached to 说 tells us that this action is ongoing. The 了 attached to 要进, on the other hand, tells us that it's a one and done, completed change of position. Combined, we get a timeline where the talking continues during the sliding. In a way, you could say that Chinese is a remarkably efficient language. Let's take another look at the original and the English translations of the two actions when they're each placed in sentences of their own. Unlock the door, Mitch said as he slid into the dressing room. Mitch was saying. Mitch slid into the dressing room. Different verb forms, said versus saying, and conjunctions, as, are needed depending on whether the two actions are described in separate sentences or combined. This isn't just true of English or even of Indo-European languages either. Lots of languages would do roughly the same thing, either with conjunctions, verb forms, or some kind of combination of both of them. Here, for example, are the Finnish, German, Japanese, and French versions of the same sentence. I happen to own quite a few translated editions of the firm. First, the Finnish. Ava nyt ovi, Mitch sanoi samalla kuin puikahti sovituskoppiin. German. Schließen Sie die Tür auf, sagte Mitch, während in der Umkleidekabine verschwand. Japanese. ドアの鍵を開けておくんだぞ。ミッチはそう言って試着室に滑り込んだ。French. Ouvrez la porte, ordonna Mitch en se glissant dans la petite pièce. In Finnish, this temporal relationship is expressed with the conjunction samalla kuin, at the same time as. In German, similarly, we have während, whilst. In Japanese, we have the te form of you, to say, which is used amongst other things to indicate continuous, combined, or sequential actions. In French, this relationship is expressed by the participle form en se glissant, which is the participle form of se glisser, to slide. Meanwhile, Chinese can do all of this without any change of form, without any conjunctions, anything like that, just by putting the two verbs 说着 and 要进了 next to each other. These are the sorts of things you learn from seeing them in action in sources of comprehensible input, whether you're reading them or listening to them. If you enjoy this content, please like and subscribe, and consider paying for it by supporting me on my Patreon or my tip page, or by subscribing to my Twitch channel where I stream my Duolingo speedrun on Friday and Saturday and some Monday afternoons. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.